For much of human history, borders were fluid and ill-defined. People roamed vast landscapes without the constraints of modern-day boundaries, and the concept of a fixed border was almost non-existent. Early societies often marked their territory based on natural features, like mountains and rivers, rather than precise lines on a map. These natural landmarks served as guides and barriers, shaping the way communities interacted with their environment and each other. These early boundaries were more like zones of influence that could shift with the tides of migration, trade, and conquest. As people moved, traded, and fought, the areas they controlled expanded and contracted, creating a dynamic and ever-changing landscape. As civilizations grew and interacted, the need for more defined borders increased. City-states and early empires began to establish more concrete boundaries to protect their interests and assert their dominance over specific regions. Empires rose and fell, carving up the world according to their ambitions and leaving behind a patchwork of territories with often disputed boundaries. The rise and fall of these empires left a lasting impact on the political landscape, with borders constantly being redrawn. The modern concept of a nation-state, with its clearly defined borders, emerged relatively recently. This idea brought a new level of order and organization to the way we understand and navigate the world. The Peace of Westphalia in 1648 is often cited as a turning point, as it established the principle of state sovereignty and the importance of fixed borders in international relations. This treaty marked the beginning of a new era in which the idea of a nation-state became central to global politics. However, even as the idea of fixed borders took hold, the reality on the ground remained messy. The process of defining and maintaining these borders was fraught with challenges, and disputes over territory were common. Historical claims, geographic realities, and political expediency all played a role in shaping the often irregular borders we see on maps today. The lines on maps are not just arbitrary marks. They represent centuries of history, conflict, and negotiation, reflecting the complex and often contentious nature of human societies. Geography has played a fundamental role in shaping borders throughout history. Mountains, with their imposing heights and difficult terrain, have often served as natural barriers, separating communities and influencing the flow of trade, migration, and even ideas. Rivers, too, have played a crucial role in delineating borders. While they can facilitate transportation and communication, they can also act as dividing lines, separating peoples and cultures. The course of a river might shift over time, leading to disputes and adjustments in the border. Beyond mountains and rivers, other geographical features have left their mark on borders. Deserts, forests, and even climate zones have influenced where people settled and how territories were defined. Understanding the interplay between geography and borders is essential for comprehending the historical development of nations and the complex relationships between them. While geography lays the groundwork, it is often political decisions, treaties, and wars that solidify borders on the ground. These decisions are not made in a vacuum. They are influenced by the ambitions, fears, and strategies of nations and their leaders. Victors in war have historically dictated terms to the vanquished, redrawing maps and establishing new borders to reflect the balance of power. The outcomes of these conflicts have often led to significant shifts in territorial control, altering the course of history for entire regions. Treaties, both peaceful and imposed, have played a crucial role in defining borders. These agreements can bring an end to hostilities, create new alliances, and set the stage for future cooperation or conflict. The signatures on these documents represent not just the end of a negotiation, but the beginning of a new geopolitical reality. Agreements between nations have established boundaries, resolved territorial disputes, and shaped the political landscape we see today. These treaties are often the result of long and complex negotiations, reflecting the interests and compromises of the involved parties. However, even the most carefully crafted treaties can leave behind a legacy of unresolved issues and simmering tensions. Disputes over interpretation, implementation, and fairness can lead to renewed conflicts and instability. Borders drawn along arbitrary lines, without regard for existing ethnic or cultural realities, have often been a source of conflict and instability. These artificial divisions can separate communities, disrupt economies, and create lasting grievances that fuel future disputes. The impact of political decisions on border formation is undeniable, and understanding this history is crucial for comprehending the complexities of international relations and the challenges of maintaining peace in a world of diverse nations. By studying the past, we can learn valuable lessons about the importance of diplomacy, the dangers of conflict, and the need for thoughtful and inclusive approaches to border making. Section 4. Cultures divided, cultures united. Borders are not simply lines on a map, they represent divisions and connections between cultures. In some cases, borders have reinforced cultural differences, separating communities that share a common language, religion, or ethnicity. In other instances, borders have brought together diverse groups, creating unique cultural blends and forging new identities. Trade, migration, and cultural exchange across borders have enriched societies and fostered innovation throughout history. The influence of cultural and ethnic considerations on border creation is complex and multifaceted. While borders can divide, they can also unite, fostering cooperation and understanding between different groups. Recognizing the cultural dimension of borders is essential for promoting tolerance, respect, and peaceful coexistence in an increasingly interconnected world. Section 5. Living on the edge. For people living near borders, the often arbitrary lines on a map can have a profound impact on their daily lives. These lines, drawn by historical events or political decisions, can shape the very fabric of their existence. Borders can influence economic opportunities, access to education and healthcare, and even the freedom of movement. For instance, a simple trip to the hospital or school can become a complex journey involving multiple checkpoints and permissions. In some regions, borders act as barriers to trade and economic development, hindering cross-border cooperation and limiting opportunities for those living on the periphery. The presence of trade barriers can stifle local economies, making it difficult for businesses to thrive and for communities to prosper. In other cases, borders can create unique economic zones, fostering cross-border trade and attracting investment. These zones can become hubs of activity, where goods and services flow freely, and new opportunities arise for entrepreneurs and workers alike. The presence of borders can also impact social and cultural interactions. Festivals, markets, and social gatherings often become places where people from different sides of the border come together, sharing traditions and building relationships. Families and communities may be divided by a border, making it difficult to maintain ties and share in important events. Weddings, funerals, and other significant life events can be overshadowed by the challenges of crossing a border. Language barriers and differing cultural norms can further complicate cross-border interactions. Navigating these differences requires patience, understanding, and often a willingness to learn and adapt. Understanding the lived experiences of people living near borders is essential for developing policies that promote economic opportunity, social cohesion, and peaceful coexistence in border regions. By listening to their stories and addressing their unique challenges, we can work towards a future where borders are not barriers but bridges that connect us all.